Hello, everybody. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Today, I'm excited to be kicking off a new series for you guys. So I know many of you guys across the world are still in quarantine. And one thing that's really been on my mind is how can I not only provide you guys content to enjoy, but how can I provide you just high quality, thoughtful, like conversation content that's valuable to you guys? And I see a lot in the comments, people saying that they're students, people saying that they're in high school, they're in college, they're in university, and that combined with the conversation I've had with friends for years, just sort of saying like, oh, I wish school had taught me that, made me want to start this series. So in this new series, we are going to be exploring some different careers. So I have some really cool women lined up. My first guest is Natalie. She's right here.
Hi.
But just some different careers and just how they got there. And this is the kind of content where, I mean, of course, I'd love everybody to watch it. But even if 10 people watch it and there's 5 meaningful comments and it sparks something in you, that would be enough for me. So I hope you guys enjoy this content. We've got some other really cool ladies lined up. We're going to try doing maybe 6 videos like this, see how it goes. But I really want to be able to provide you just some meaningful and thoughtful content during this time. This video is going to be a long one, so this is a fantastic video to even just play while you're doing the dishes or while you're doing chairs or folding laundry. Like, treat it like a podcast. It will not be that visually interesting. It's just going to be us talking, so feel free to have other tabs open and be working away. But anyways, that is enough of an introduction. So Natalie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Alana. I love your channel, so it's nice to be part of it. My name is Natalie Weed. I am a real estate broker. I'm also an office manager of a real estate office. I also write for a blog, so it's called Pretty and Smart Co.
No.
And and I also volunteer with our Chamber of Commerce.
Very cool. So Natalie is, what she didn't mention, also my real estate agent.
Yes,
So
I
if you guys have picked
am.
up in some of the videos where I mentioned like, oh, like maybe we'll get a house this year, that's on her. No pressure.
Yep.
Um,
I'm
but
excited.
but anyways, she is super cool, successful in her career, and I want to showcase some really just different careers. I feel very fortunate to have an incredible network of friends who have just different paths in life and different careers. And I know that some of you guys do want to be makeup artists, so don't worry, I've got something for you guys coming up. But let's get into this. So we're going to just kick it off with a few just fun get to know you questions, and then we're going to get into the more serious stuff. So
Okay.
the last place you traveled, these are like rapid
France.
fire, like go, go, go.
Okay. France.
Okay. Best souvenir you've ever brought home.
Race car outfit for Leo.
Okay. You have to send me a picture of that.
I will.
And by the way, she has an adorable son.
Thank
First
you.
restaurant you want to go to when quarantine is over.
Ooh, Bridgewood in Georgetown.
Okay. What are you most proud of?
The relationship with my family.
How have you been keeping busy in quarantine?
Taking care of my son Leo and working
When do you get your best work done?
as early as possible.
And your least favorite chore?
Folding laundry.
Okay, for me, it's not folding it, it's putting it away. I can get it folded. I just never get it put away.
Yeah.
Top 3 beauty products.
Lipstick, eyeliner, and mascara.
3 things you always have in your purse.
Advil, lipstick, and business cards.
Good call on the business card. And your Starbucks order.
White chocolate mocha, half sweet with whip.
And your favorite thing to splurge on.
Travel. I love splurging on travel.
Oh, me too. This is killing me.
Me
Like,
too.
I supposed to go to Italy this summer.
Oh, my favorite. I love Italy.
I know. I went in high
Sad.
school and I was going to go with my best friend and my husband and her husband. We were gonna have
Oh.
this epic trip. And I was also going to go to Alberta, to Calgary and Banff for my husband's cousin's wedding. I was so excited for it. I love that. I mean, not that I love his whole family, but I really love that one cousin. She's so fun. And we were going to
Mhm.
get Banff. But the good news for you is I canceled it. I got all my money back and it's just more down payment money.
There you go. That's good. At
Right.
least there's a positive. Yeah.
So let's just kick it off real simple. Why real estate?
Real estate is a really interesting career because you're a small business owner. So you're working with a bunch of different people, but you also get very close to the people you work with. So your clients can become your friends, and it's almost like for that small amount of time when you're helping them find a house, you're getting to know their entire family. And, they talk to you about what's going on in their life at the time. Sometimes they share big news with you, like they're expecting a baby or they're
Just maybe when
um,
you get a house.
yeah, exactly. So there's always like something interesting going on, and they become very vulnerable with you because it's a very stressful time of their life. One of the most stressful things you'll ever do is buy a house. So it's just a nice time to bond with people, and you get to know so many different people on another level.
That's fair. And I mean, not only is it a vulnerable time of trying to buy a home, but then you're also, effectively going to be privy to their entire financial
Yeah.
situation. And also, I know that a lot of people don't necessarily want to like broadcast to the world, like, hello, we are planning on trying to get pregnant in 2 years.
Yeah.
And then once we have a 2-year-old, we will try again until we have the perfect family of 3 children, 2 girls,
Hmm.
1 boy, white picket, like, I think a lot of people have, sort of wants like as a couple that you'll discuss, but
Hmm.
you're not always going out to all your friends and family and saying, we would like to start trying today. Or,
Exactly.
but, when you're talking with your real estate agent, you're not just, I mean, you might have a different view on this. I think of, at least for the first house we want to buy, I want a house that's going to work for our first 7 years.
Hmm.
And so it's like, suddenly you have to tell someone, how do you envision those first 7 years?
For
And what
sure.
if they don't go the way you want it to go?
Yeah, that's so true. And people like they really share their dreams with you, right? They share what they want for 7 years. They also share just, things that haven't gone their way. So they express a lot to you that you probably wouldn't have found out had you not been helping them with this transaction.
Fair. And it's interesting because it is a transaction, but it's also like more than that. And it's also like, this is a transaction you might only make 3 times in your life. How many times do I order clothes online from Reitman's? Right? Like, this is
Exactly.
kind of a big deal.
It's a
Okay.
huge deal. Yeah.
So you studied at York University.
Hmm.
What did you study? And did it in any way, shape, or form become relevant to your career?
So yes, it definitely did. I don't know if a lot of people know this about me, but I actually started studying in acting. So the reason I went to York University was
I did
because
not know that.
they have an acting conservatory, but
Okay.
they only accept 14 people into the program. So they have thousands of people that apply, and then you have to go through this very stressful, rigorous like audition process. And then after a year of like working in another field in theater at York, they then select 14 people based on another audition process to get into the program.
Okay, I had no idea.
Yeah, and so it was it was amazing. I ended up only doing it for 2 more years because I just wanted to learn more about other things too, and the way I thought about university was that I should broaden, like, my education.
Fair.
But when I look back, I learned so much from acting. It helped me learn how to present. It helped me learn how to just be comfortable in uncomfortable situations and how to work on a team. We had 14 people in our class, and we had to all get along. We had to make theater, be entertaining, support each other, even though like we were competing against each other. So for that reason, I think that it really prepared me for a career in real estate.
Yeah, it struck me when you said supporting each other, but also competing with each other.
Hmm.
Um, I think of, so I don't really talk about my career a lot on here. I talk about all the pretty things. But I
Hmm.
do sort of work in the political space. And I know so many real estate agents. There are so many of them.
Yeah.
And it's like, ultimately you have to pick someone who's going to get, I mean, I don't know what the commission on a house works out to, but like a lot of money.
Hmm.
So yeah, it really struck me when you said like competing but supporting. One thing
Yeah.
in the beauty community that's said a lot is like community over competition. But I think what's a little bit different is, in a sense, there's not a finite number of people who could subscribe to any channel. Like, if I'm subscribed to a friend's channel, it doesn't mean that I can't be subscribed to another channel,
Hmm.
right? Whereas obviously on real estate, like, you have to pick one person to be your agent.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah.
You.
Yay! I really appreciate it. It honestly means the world to me, so I'm very happy.
Well, I'm
Um,
really excited to look for houses, for houses or for houses with you this spring. But instead, we're filming this video, so that's cool too.
yep.
Um, okay, you left university and you worked in politics, and then for the Consulate General of Israel in
Mhm.
Toronto. So tell us about it and what skills did you gain from that?
Okay, so yeah, when I graduated university, I got a job in Ottawa working for the Prime Minister, which was a really huge jump from university.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had worked on a lot of different campaigns and I had networked a lot, gone to a lot of different events. I had a job that was mainly a volunteer role before I actually got the position in the Prime Minister's office, and it really set me up to be prepared for a job in politics. Um, but when I moved to Ottawa, it was my first time living alone. It was my first time being completely away from my family, like 4.5 hours. And I started work at the Prime Minister's office at 7 a.m. and I wouldn't leave until after 7 p.m. So I was totally like in this new role in this totally, fascinating city, but I got to enjoy it, the outside city, very little. And so the relationship with my colleagues was really important. We were together at least 12 hours a day. We were working on goals that felt very important at the time, and you couldn't have a weak link. So we couldn't have one person who, just didn't carry their load. We all had to work together. And I think that really set me up for all my future jobs because we didn't count the hours, we counted what we accomplished. And so work
That is
wasn't
so important. Like,
yeah, like yeah, work wasn't like a 40-hour work week where we were like clocked in, clocked out, counted, okay, I've got my time in. It was really goal oriented and it was really like, did we get this press release out? Was it good enough? What did it say? How many people came to our press conference? Were we prepared enough? Like it was all about the goals rather than just seeing it as something we did to make money.
yeah, and like I'd say one thing I really took from my time in politics is also the idea of when there's work to do, you get it done.
Hmm.
But if there's not, I know that it's all relative, but if there's not a lot of work to do, it is okay to, go home or take it easy. Like for me, it really taught me, like when there's work to do, you get it done.
Hmm.
And if you have finished your work or there, it's a slower time, like, I find the summer often in politics can be a bit of a slower time, then you get to enjoy that time. And to me, it's like you're almost sort of trading with yourself. Like when it's busy time, like, are you working 40 hours a week? Are you working 80? Who knows?
Yeah,
But, when it is that lighter time, it's okay to go home a little early or it's okay to decompress a little bit.
for sure. And I really felt that when I worked for the Israeli consulate. Um, Working for the Israeli consulate was one of the most fascinating experiences I've ever had in my entire life. I wouldn't have traded that for anything, to be honest with you. I was the first person they had hired that wasn't Jewish and hadn't been to Israel.
Have you been,
Yeah, I
did,
haven't.
did you get to do any travel working there?
I traveled to the States a little bit and to Ottawa. Yeah, I
Okay.
know.
What I was really saying is, did you get to go to Engedi and did you get to go to Masada?
I know. I
Okay.
know. I didn't, unfortunately. That's on my bucket list,
You need to
definitely.
go. Okay, so
Yeah.
back to real estate. What does a broker do and how is that different from being an agent?
So as a real estate broker, rather than a real estate like salesperson, which is often coined agent, I just basically have another level of education. So I've studied the broker's course. But with that, I'm also able to manage a brokerage, which I'm doing. So I'm managing the Remax office that I work for. And it also allows me, if I ever wanted to start my own brokerage, I have that license to basically be a broker of record. And education is powerful. So it allows us just to basically know what's going on. We have to do an update course, keep up to date on all the most recent changes that were made to real estate. But it's mainly just the fact that you get to manage an office and you get to have your own brokerage should you ever want to.
Cool. And I guess on that note, what is the education path to becoming a real estate agent?
So it keeps changing, but it's a lengthy one. First, you have to
Which
do
is good because there's a lot of legal and, it's people's homes and lives. So
Absolutely.
But go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. So, what they were doing before is that through the Ontario Real Estate Association, when I first got my license, you had to do 3 courses. Um, they took about 3, 4 months if you weren't like working full time, which I was, to complete. And then once you're done those, you start articling, and then you can essentially start training as a realtor or trading as a realtor. And then you can start making a little bit of money, but you still have to do 3 more courses during your first 2 years. So now it's a little bit different because you have to do the first 4 courses, and it's actually done through a college instead of going through the Ontario Real Estate Association. So you have to actually like sign up to Sheridan College, and then realtors who are also teachers or like real estate. They're also like maybe not teachers, but they're professors,
Instructors or whatever.
instructors. Yeah, they share their real life experience with you, and they teach the course to you.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And like, is it costly? Like, is it expensive? Like, if you, I mean, I'm sort of thinking of maybe two different people who might become a real estate agent.
Hmm.
On one hand, you have, I have a friend who she graduated, university, and boom,
Yeah.
to off to become a real estate agent, and she's a real estate agent now, I believe.
Hmm.
But then I also think about, what about people who are changing career sort of mid-course? Like, maybe, I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of people who unfortunately won't be able to return to their previous employment,
Right.
with this pandemic. Like, how, like, is it, I was going to say, like, is it costly? Like, is it, I mean, part of it, is it worth the cost? Like, it's okay if it's costly, if it's worth it, but how, like, I don't know if you can just sort of expand
Yeah.
those thought bubbles that I've just thrown out.
Yeah. So you should set aside about $10,000 when you're going to start doing your courses.
And I should
Um,
say, we are in Ontario, Canada. This
yeah.
might be different in other places, but this is a very Ontario discussion.
Yes. Yeah. So you should set aside about $10,000 to do the courses, buy the materials, and still be comfortable. But the biggest hurdle with real estate is that when you start, you don't have a salary. So it's 100% commission. And it can take people anywhere from 2 to 3 months to a full year before they're actually doing deals. And it really just depends on the person. The biggest factor being your sphere of influence, how many people you know, how many people you interact with on a daily basis. If you're the type of person where you sort of want to stay home and you don't really want to go out after 5 o'clock, and you just want to basically live a 9 to 5 type of life, you don't like networking, real estate is probably not going to be for you, and that's okay. But it's really important to know that, just because it's a business where you have to constantly be out meeting people and constantly out looking for new people to work with. So that's the biggest factor. Like, some people can go into debt their first year if they're not doing deals, or you might get lucky and you might work really hard and you might make a lot of money. And depending on how much sort of faith you have in yourself, on how much money you're going to make, really is the, the deciding factor about whether the cost is going to be worth it. For me, the cost was minimal compared to what I ended up making my first year. So I was, yeah, for me, it was like, it was fine. It didn't, it set me back the first couple months though. Like the first 3 months in real estate were really difficult. They were very stressful. It was the first time in my life I think I felt depressed just because I
So
basically,
bubbly. Like, you were just like so bubbly and outgoing, and like,
thank you.
I wouldn't like associate that word with you.
Thank you. Yeah, I honestly don't feel that often, but think I take a lot of pride in what I do. And when I was working in politics, I was very proud of that. And I made, good money, and I sort of had everything together. It was just, I felt like I needed to try something else. I needed to give myself a shot at being my own boss and being an entrepreneur. But it's hard. And when you don't get the results you want the first few months, I felt like it really stressed me out. It was trying to navigate this new path and trying to be strategic while also trying to learn a new business.
Yeah.
So it's a juggling act the first couple months.
And it definitely, I know some people, who, sort of think that they can become a real estate agent, and it'll sort of be a get rich quick scheme, almost, in the sense that okay, it's a couple of months, I'll get the certification, and then I just need a buddy to sell his house and I'll get like $40,000, right? But
Mhm.
I think there's a lot more to it. And,
Yeah.
I think it also matters at what stage your network is at.
Yes, definitely. And another big thing is taxes, like for realtors. You're in one of the highest categories. So you pretty much have to split like 50% of whatever you make. You have to
No idea
assume,
about the taxes. So
yeah, the
expand on
taxes are are very high. So everything you make, you sort of take 50% of that and you put it away and just assume that you're going to be paying that back. You're also collecting HST. So you're getting 13% HST on whatever you make, and that is due at the end of the year. So you must pay that back. And where a lot of realtors find themselves in hot water is that they spend that money or they use that money or they have a hard time budgeting because some years you might make 60,000, other years you might make 200,000. And so it's hard to know what bracket you're going to be in. And so it's just important. And any advice I would give to new realtors is basically plan at least 50% of what you're making plus your 13% to put away. And then if you overplan, then you have money left over. But if you don't, then you're going to be scrambling to try and make that money back.
And I think if there's anything with real estate, I mean, you look at what's going on right now in the world, not a ton of people are, buying houses. So, if you were sort of thinking like, oh, it's okay, like next month I'll just sell an extra one. Now we're here.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting what COVID has sort of done to real estate right now. Um, I really thought it was going to be a few months before I was busy again. So I was kind of thinking, okay, that's fine. We'll just plan that it'll be a delayed spring. But as soon as Ford came on the news and basically said they were starting to reopen the economy, I have had people coming out of the woodworks looking to buy a house.
Cool.
Yeah, and so it's been an extremely busy 2 weeks. We've been putting offers in almost every single night, and there's multiple offers on almost everything.
And how is viewing looking? Like how is viewing working? I know for me as someone who, I mean, right now I'm in my beautiful apartment,
Yeah.
but as someone who is hoping to buy within the next, I mean, I'd like to buy tomorrow, but within,
Yeah.
approximately the next like 6 months. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what that exactly will depend when the perfect house
Yeah.
comes. But like as someone who does want to buy, one thing that I find really off-putting is a smell. Like if the house doesn't smell good or like the building doesn't smell good,
Mhm.
I am just not interested. Like I recently picked up, Stuart got me a purse that was pre-loved. It's a beautiful Dior bag. And I was reading the description box and there was no odor associated with it, but they had some other used purses that were described as having a musty odor. So for me,
Mhm.
smells a really big thing. And I just wonder, like, how do you account for that?
Mhm.
Like, how's the viewing process working?
Well, it's funny because in real estate, we have this saying when we're about to list a house, and it's smells don't sell. So you're not alone in that. A lot of people like they don't want to take on a house that's smelly. And when you walk into a house, you want to have a good feeling. And a lot of people make decisions based on that. So as realtors, what we'll do when open houses are allowed is we'll like bake cookies in the oven of the house before the open house, or we'll bake like an apple pie, or we'll maybe just warm it up in the oven so that the smells come out. And so people associate warm food with different like holidays like Thanksgiving
Yeah,
or
homey.
homey, yeah, times where they feel happy. So that's one really nice thing that we can do. But with COVID right now, physically showings are looking a lot different because we have masks, we have gloves, we have little shoe boots. So and we have sanitization wipes. So we're basically walking through the house with our wipe and our gloves and a full mask on. So it's not really instilling the most comfort in people, but it's necessary because we need to keep them and our families safe. So
Yeah,
safety
no,
first.
for sure. I mean, I just think, for those of you who are listening in on this conversation who aren't from, Toronto and the GTA housing market is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
I had I think it was on a video or an Insta story, and someone was like, "Oh, like, why don't you have a house yet?" And it's like, well, it's going to cost me about $900,000.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
how's money?
it's pretty crazy.
And, so I just know that for myself, if I'm going to be putting that much money and, what is it, a 25 or 30-year mortgage of probably like $4,000 a month on the line, I don't want a musty house, or I want something
Absolutely.
I can see or feel. So it's good to hear that viewings are sort of coming back.
Mhm.
Okay. Uh, okay, here's some more fun questions. Walk us through a typical day in your life.
So one thing that I think people who are in real estate really love about real estate is that there aren't many typical days because they're all so different, and my day changes very quickly. So in the morning, I wake up as early as possible, and now that I have a son who is only 5 months old, that means
So
waking up.
cute.
Yeah, that means waking up after I feed him. So he wakes up around 5 a.m. Like after he wakes up every 2 to 3 hours, but 5 a.m. is kind of like the more normal time that he wakes up. Yeah, I know. So I wake up, I feed him, I put him back to bed, and then I know I have about an hour and a half that's to myself before the day starts, before clients start sort of emailing me and calling me. And so I sit down and I get my work done. And what getting my work done looks like is when I have prospect searches, I'll go into my prospect searches and just look at the houses that have been sent to different clients. And I review them and just say, like, okay, would that be good? What would they like about that? What wouldn't they like? And then we start talking about them. Often people like as soon as like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. start, they are messaging me being like, "Hey, what's the deal with this property? What's the deal with this property?" And and having like a baby now, I have to be pre-prepared so that when people ask me, I already know, or it's just a quick, I know what they're already talking about. And the only way to do that is to wake up at like 5 or 6 a.m. and get that work in first.
Like,
Yeah, so I do that. And then if they want to see the property, I then start booking showings and try and just line up their schedule with the homeowner schedule so that we can get in to see them and then drive down, meet them, show them the property, have a list of comparables. So other houses that have sold in the area and what they've sold for, so that when they ask me, I have an idea of what the house is worth. And then if they like it, we put in an offer.
awesome. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and I guess one thing is when the minute someone says like, "Hey, I'm sort of interested to selling a house," is there like an average time? Is it mostly people like, "I want to buy a house," and 2 weeks later they got a house? Is it, "Hey, I'm sort of interested," like, in the next year? Like, what's sort of the timeline that most people are coming to you with?
Usually it's about 2 to 3 months. Like, once somebody reaches out to me, they're thinking in the next 2 to 3 months, I sort of wanna be ready. But there are different factors. Like, for example, one family that reached out to me a little while ago, they wanted to buy a house, but it seemed very overwhelming because they weren't ready yet. Their house wasn't ready to sell. So, we did a virtual walkthrough, and they were basically saying, like, "I don't know where to start." So part of what our job is to just break it down into easy steps that are, easy for them to just basically act on. So we'll say like, okay, number one, we're going to get you a storage container. We're going to make sure that you have the place to put the cluttered items. So then they can move all their stuff into that storage unit and they don't have to worry about like, where am I going to put it? How am I going to hide it? Can I purge it? Where do I throw it out? And then the next step, okay, we're going to look at properties. We're going to send you a group of properties. Tell me if you like them. Then they sort of give me their feedback, and I know based on what they select, what they kind of like, and then it gets very targeted from there. So we're like, "Okay, you want a pool, you don't want a pool. You want gas, you don't want gas." It's like, and then we're able to narrow it down and try and make it as efficient as possible.
Awesome. 'Cause I know when we first reached out to you, we looked at townhomes in one particular neighborhood,
Yeah.
and I thought it was what I wanted, and the price point was like pretty good, like
Mhm.
definitely in our price point. Um, and then the townhomes themselves were like fine, except for that one. That one was
Yeah.
terrible, but the neighborhood just wasn't great. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't terrible, but it's just not where
Imagined.
or it's not as I don't know. It wasn't great.
Yep.
And so I know in that case, we sort of talked about it and we are like, well, what's the next price point up? And that got us into, we don't live there yet, but it got us
Mhm.
looking into a neighborhood that I think is more in line with where we sort of see our lives for the next 7 years. And
Mhm.
so we had sort of made the decision that, you know what, I would rather save an extra year and live where I actually want to live than, buy that particular townhouse right now. And I mean, the prices on those still look really good, but
I know.
and Stuart and I are in a very comfortable position that we're not in a rush. Like we have friends who were house hunting when she was 6 months pregnant,
Yes, not ideal.
and they had to get something
Yes.
fast.
Yeah.
Uh, and so we're not in that time crunch, which is nice. Okay, so tell us about the first house that you closed.
So it was incredible, because I up until the first couple weeks and the first couple months, in order to make money, I was doing leases. So what you do is you basically look for the low hanging fruit. So a lot of successful realtors, they just didn't want to do they didn't want to do leases. So I basically told every successful realtor in the office, like I would take any of their leases and I would treat them like a buyer. I would go and pick them up, I would drive them, and they were like, why would you want to do that for like $1,000 or and I'm like, because I have to, like, and I need to
I
learn
want
the market.
$1,000.
Yeah, like at that time, like $1,000 seems like a lot of money. So, and I needed to pay gas, I needed to pay my real estate fees, my association fees. So I told them all, I'll do your leases. So they gave me their leases. But then somebody who I had known through politics reached out to me and he was like, hey, I heard that you've become a realtor. And I was like, I am. And he's like, oh, I need to buy and sell a house. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, is this how it happens? Like,
I'm here.
I was like, yes, yes, I'm ready. Like, I'm totally prepared. So we right away started looking at houses. I got very lucky because he was looking at Leaside. So the houses there are really expensive, big, beautiful homes.
I want one.
And yeah, me
I'll
too.
call you in
They're
a decade. House two.
yeah.
House two.
And they have great schools. So it was amazing. So the first deal that I did was a over $1 million purchase. And then he had to sell his home, which was about 700,000.
Darn.
Yeah, and so I was like, I can't even tell you how grateful I was because he knew how new I was. Like he knew that I had been maybe a month or two into the business, and he was just like, "No, I know you. Like I trust you. Like I know you'll figure it out. And if you don't know it, like I'll help you. Like it's not that hard." So I was like, "Wow, thank you." Like, with your biggest asset, like you're gonna trust me. And then it was just sort of like, okay, here's the paperwork and sign here and sign there. And my mom, who's also a realtor, was with me, and she basically watched over the process. So she made sure that I didn't make any huge mistakes or I didn't get anyone into like big trouble. And she obviously like lent her expertise to me, which was so useful. Like I really recommend anybody who's getting into the business to pair up with somebody who knows what they're doing because it takes a lot of the stress off. And you're dealing with little intricate legal issues that you never really had thought about before. Like one of them was on the home title, the other one wasn't. For a new agent, you don't really know how to handle that. So my mom walked me through that process. But yeah, the first two commissions were really large, and I was just blown away because up until then, my biggest commission was probably about like 500, maybe $1,000, and then like it was 2.5% of like 1.3 or 1.4 million was my first commission. So I was like, I've just made my fees back. Like I've made back my real estate courses. So
That's amazing. Because so when we moved into our apartment, I had never even thought that a real estate agent would help you find a lease, and
mhm.
that it didn't cost me anything. And so I remember
Right, yeah.
I was originally looking on condos.ca. Just like I honestly did not think of reaching out to a real estate agent. And so I was
Yeah.
just looking on condos.ca because they had lots of like leasing posts. And so I was looking through it and I was like, oh, that one's cute. And then there's like contact, whatever. I was like, okay, click. And then it was actually a real estate agent and he was great. We looked at probably 4 or 5. We knew what neighborhood we wanted to be in. We looked at
Mhm.
a couple that were listed, and then the building that we're actually in wasn't on the listing, but he was like, I think you guys will like this building, check it out. And it definitely made the process of finding a rental and like knowing what to look at just a lot more comfortable, like just knowing someone who knows the area and like knows what's good in a building. And for me, it was my first time moving out. And I mean, I love our apartment. The only reason I want to leave is I want a house. So,
Right.
but let's see. Okay, so speaking of condos.ca, how do
Mhm.
you see the internet impacting real estate agents? We've seen Uber really disrupt the taxi industry. We've seen, skip the dishes and other sort of like online food delivery things like disrupt the restaurant industry. I mean, right now, skip the dishes, thank you. That's how I'm not
Yeah.
doing my own cooking every night. But like, has it already happened? Is it happening? And what do you think agents need to do to stay ahead of that?
Yeah, so I think that it's really interesting to see what the internet and access to information has done for our clients. I find that now I am dealing with a much more educated client. So when we go to a property, often they already know what houses around the corner have sold for. And for me, it's only really helped because in the past, a large part of our job was showing comparables. Say something was listed for 499, people would assume that it would sell for like 480, 499, but now they can look and they can see that it sold for 650. And then they're like, "Oh, like,
That's gonna be the next thing I bring up, by the way. That town
right.
like that, but keep going.
Yeah." And so it's like, instead of me saying to them like, "Okay, but guys, this area, like, just so you know, they often sell for 650." And then at first maybe they don't really trust that. Like they're like, "Oh, I don't think you know what you're talking about." And then showing them all the comparables, they already know that a lot of the time. So they're gonna look at me and be like, "Oh, no, no, we know, like that was 700, like that was sold for this." And so for us as realtors, we have to come prepared. We have to come prepared with the latest information, and we have to be, knowledgeable about the area. Does that area have termites, which some areas in Toronto have? Does that area have rats? Like if it's near a lake or if it's near water, sometimes there is a rat problem. So there are different things that, we sort of have to know ahead of the client and just say to them like, yes, it's a great area, but you're going to have this problem, or there's flooding in that zone. So let's make sure the property is waterproofed. Or so for us, we need to really be specialists in the areas that we're looking in so that we can offer our clients value more than just here's the paperwork, sign off on it, and send it in.
So it's sort of, how do you provide that next level value? The one thing I just want to say when you're talking about rats, Stuart commented on our apartment the other day. He's like, I don't think I've ever seen a spider in our apartment.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
good.
super.
Yeah.
But no, definitely I appreciate that, trying to provide that next level value. Um, so there are two things I want to sort of circle back on. So first of all, in the fall, Natalie took us to view this absolutely stunning townhouse. Like, it was
Yeah.
literal perfection. I did see one on that street go up for sale a few weeks ago. I stalked that street. I stalked those townhouses. It was literally perfect, like bright, beautiful, great neighborhood, great schools, and naive, sweet, sweet Alana saw that it was 820, and I was like, oh, I mean, a little bit of a stretch, but we could probably make that work. Maybe.
Mhm.
What did it sell for? It's 1,029,000.
Like a million 20. Yeah.
Yeah,
Million 20.
200 over. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
cool, great.
And I know, and that it's such a frustration for home buyers and for the realtors because when the market is that hot, even we can't predict what it's going to sell for
Yeah,
because it's not about is that a fair price? It's what is someone going to pay for it? It becomes whoever offers the highest without conditions is going to win the offer. And that's frustrating because then it for us, like as much as we try, we can say, okay, the last one sold for 1,010,000. I wouldn't go past that. And then it sells for 1,040,000, and the person's looking at you like, but you said,
I
you're
want
like, well, yeah, I want it.
it. I know that one. I mean, at least for me, the comfort I found in that one is just knowing the price it sold for is just a price we just couldn't compete with. Like,
Exactly.
it's not like we were able to offer 1,020,000 and
Hmm.
it sold for 1,029,000, and we're like, oh, well, for $9,000 more. Which, one thing that's really sort of struck me both in weddings and now as we sort of venture into real estate is in weddings less so, but I'm not saying that $9,000 is not a lot of money, but $9,000 on a $1 million purchase when that $9,000 is spread out over 30 years,
Exactly.
not a lot of money.
Right.
Um, like it still is. Like if someone offered me $9,000, I'd be like, thank
Of
you.
course. Yeah.
But you sort of like your price. I don't know. Your mental price levels are like, oh, only $9,000 more. Okay.
Yeah.
Which
And sometimes, oh, sorry. Sometimes part
goes
of
with
our,
weddings. Sometimes you're just like, oh, only $500 for that. What a bargain! Great.
yeah, put that in my basket. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes what part of our job, is doing too is basically saying to the client, like, "Look, if you go 5,000 more, you're not gonna feel this over 30 years." Like, it's just not a big deal because sometimes people get a mental block on like, "No, only this amount of money and that's it." And it's like, "Look, this is within your approval. You can do that 5,000 more and you're not gonna feel it and you will win this house." And then it's like, "Fine, I'll do it."
And to the person
So
selling the house, it's kind of funny because that $5,000, like, that could be a vacation.
exactly. Yeah,
So it's kind of weird in that the person selling it really feels the 5,000, but the
exactly.
person buying it doesn't.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's, what one thing I just really appreciated is when we were looking in that perfectly fine other neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I think you could sort of tell when we were talking about it that we just didn't love it. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't the place that I would want to live for the next decade or raise a kid or whatever. And when you were just like, no, like you can do a little bit more. And what I appreciated was that rather than like, as the agent sort of like pressure, like, no, like, oh, I got to get my commission. So you need to buy this house now. You being like, no, like just wait a year, wait
Mhm.
a year and live where you want to live. And so I
Mhm.
just really appreciated that. Like and I still feel, obviously I wouldn't have invited you on my
Mhm.
channel if I thought you were a garbage human being. But
Thank you.
I just so public service announcement, Natalie is not a garbage human being. No,
Thank
but
you.
yeah, I just really appreciated that. I felt like you were sort of wanting to find, the right home for me and Stuart for the next decade, rather than like just getting me into a house and on to the next one. Like I feel like you are invested, and partly I think because we're friends outside of this, but like,
Mhm.
yeah, I just feel like you're invested in us finding the right home. So
Thank you. Yeah, I try and put my clients' needs before my own, because that's my job. I mean, really, it is. Your job is to make sure people walk away happy. The last thing that I want is to move someone into a property because, it helps me. And then they're not happy and they're looking at me like, you know what we wanted, and this isn't it. Like, why did you put us here? And you as a realtor, you can be persuasive and you don't want to use that to put people into the wrong
don't want to use it
property.
for evil.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true because in sales, like, you can sell something, but you're like, am I gonna put somebody somewhere where they're not gonna be happy and they're gonna be upset with me, or they're going to be upset with their life? Like, you want to make sure that people walk away being like, wow, this
And
really was the right
people to
decision.
refer you, I
Yeah,
think
true.
so much word of mouth. And I think especially to people who are buying their first home or who are new to that real estate space, like, you know in one sense, and this is no offense to all of the real estate agents ever, but like it all just kind of looks the same, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, they're a real estate with Remax, they're a real estate with Century 21, they're a real estate agent, like, okay, like what's the difference? And to me, like, the difference really is the person
Mhm.
and how they're like, I don't know, invested in you or what knowledge they have. But the funny thing was, so when my parents sold our Toronto house, so my parents sold the house in Toronto and they moved up basically to the cottage full time.
Mhm.
They're loving it. And so the real estate market was really hot. And so my dad decided he wanted to try listing it himself. There was, I forget what the online service.
Purple bricks.
No, it was something where you basically list it yourself and you don't have an agent.
Mm.
And so my dad listed himself, and some agents actually came in and were real jerks to him, and were
Yeah.
like, we're not even going to show people your house. Like they were like really mean, and it was
Mhm.
really needless. And ultimately we weren't able to sell the house fast enough. But there was one agent who was like, who would still bring in people to view the house and who was very nice and very decent to my dad. And he was
Mhm.
a really young guy, I think, still trying to like, kind of cut his teeth. And he, at one point said to my dad, like, hey, like if this, if selling it yourself doesn't work out, please keep me in mind. And he was the only person who wasn't a jerk to my dad. And so a few weeks later, when the house hadn't sold and my dad just wanted to just have it over with, who did he call?
Oh, that's so amazing.
And so that guy got to go into his real estate broker and bring in, like, look, we're talking about a fully detached home in Toronto with Lakeview. He basically got
Wow.
to bring in I don't know the exact,
Multi-million dollar house.
1.1 to 1.3 million
Yeah,
dollar listing. And the guy was like, how did you bring this in? And the honest answer was he wasn't a jerk to my dad.
I love that because you
And he was a
do
really nice
deal with a
guy.
lot. Yeah.
So do you like, what do you do if you see for sale by owner? Like, how does that impact
For me, like the way
all of
that
the
I
things?
yeah, the way that I think about it, number 1 is clients' needs first. So, if it's listed by the for sale by owner, I'm happy to show it. But it does change your process. So often what I'll do is I'll reach out to them first and I'll have a conversation with them just to gauge like, okay, what does the house look like? Why did you choose to list it yourself? Because you want to make sure there's not a liability there. Like, are they listing it themselves because a realtor walked in and said like, no, you've had a leak here. I'm not going to, cover that up for you, and they painted over it.
Detective, or are they trying to save money?
Exactly. And then we talk about commission first. We say like, okay, and are you still offering a cooperating broker commission or are you not? And generally they are. They're willing to pay that side. They just didn't want to pay on the listing side. So we say, okay, so we sign the forms that are basically saying like, I can show your house and my insurance will still cover me and you're still going to pay us this amount of money if we do like your house. So everything's up front. Then we bring the client in and they take a look at the house. And then, I mean, honestly, for us, we're happy to show any of these houses. The only thing is with for sale by owner sometimes is that um, you have to be careful because you're representing both sides
Mhm.
effectively. So, the people who don't have an agent, you don't want to walk in and just rip them off.
Yeah, for
You,
sure.
so you have to make sure that like they feel protected too, and they feel like you're also working for their interest, even though they decided not to have a realtor. So it is a fine line sometimes, and a lot of agents don't want to walk it.
That's fair.
Um, yeah, and some agents they are offended by it because they're like, "How could you take this away from a realtor?" But for me, I think there's a place for everybody. Like there is a place for those who want to sell their own house, want to buy their own house. It's not going to be for everybody.
I will say I definitely appreciate, like, sort of feeling like I have a guide, like,
Yeah.
sort of feeling like I've got someone who I can like, "Is that a good deal? It looks
Mhm.
like a good deal. What's wrong with it?" I remember that one house that kept on being, listed
Popping back up.
on Houston
Yeah.
Road, and no, thank you.
Yeah.
On a slightly different note,
Mhm.
so for those of you who are not from Ontario, you have not had our very, very useful civics and career class. So
Mm.
CivCar, or civics and career, it's a one semester class. So civics and careers are each half of a semester, and a semester is half of a school year. So it is basically a blip in the radar for 1 year in grade 10. My civics class was basically like, here's how our elections work, and I already knew all that. And careers was like, here's some personality tests. And basically the personality test told me that I should be a lawyer. And I mean, I married a lawyer,
Mhm.
because it was like, oh, you can write and you can argue and you're kind of persuasive. You should be a lawyer. And I was like, okay. But and now I work in consulting. Um, but I feel like there are so many careers that as I've entered the workforce and experienced and had seen friends take on, that I just didn't know existed in
Mhm.
careers. So, what do you wish careers taught you? And kind of part B of that question is, did you feel that real estate was a career that was talked about in careers class?
Mhm. In careers class, I wish that they had taught me that I didn't have to just pick one career. I always
True. Yes.
Yeah. Like,
Yes.
I always thought I had to pick, like, "Oh, I'll be a lawyer. Oh, I'll be a doctor," or, "Oh, I'll be this," and I felt it was very overwhelming because I was like, "Well, I don't know." Like, I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to work in politics. I wanted to, make a lot of money. I wanted to do different I had no idea, and I was more, like, of an arts, smart. So, general arts in university. I ended up switching to psychology and women's studies. Those aren't things that you can really plan for because you don't know exactly where your strengths are. So I felt a lot of pressure just to pick something and to say, okay, I want to be a lawyer. That's what I want to be when I grow up. Not knowing that there were so many other careers. And I sort of wish,
So many careers.
yeah, I wish they had focused on the different careers, like a negotiator for uh the police, or like something where it's like focus on your strengths, know what your strengths are, then know what your interests are, and then look to how you can apply those. Don't necessarily just pick one of the big jobs that
The
people
top
talk
10,
about.
whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many interesting things that you can do as a career. But another thing that's important is the lifestyle you want. Like, do you want to work every day, or do you want to, have off hours, or are you an early bird and you'd rather get your work done from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m.? Like, all of these things are important to factor in when you're
Yeah.
picking your
And how
future.
much money you wanna make. I mean,
Yes,
it's easy to say, like, "I want to make all of the money. I'll just be Jeff
right.
Bezos and focus in on that trillion." But,
Yeah,
when you think about, it's all kinda trade-offs, and, you sort of wanna think about that lifestyle you want, and I think it's also, for anyone who is still watching, um, especially for younger women, I think it's also important when you're picking your partner and your husband, like, not that you should pick someone based on their job because that would like, that's gold digging,
yeah, limiting.
don't recommend. But, when you're, picking your partner again, like, you wanna make sure that that person envisions the same lifestyle as you, because that's the person you are gonna be buying your house with, and that's the person who you are going to be taking vacations with. And so,
Yep,
it's not like, I'm not saying that you need to take the richest guy you can find, because that is a terrible idea. Also, as women, we should just make our own money, and
yep.
then whatever money our partner makes is awesome too. Um, but I think that when you're picking your partner, like, you want to think about what's the lifestyle you're going to have, and that, like, I don't know, I think it's just so important, like, for your career and your partner is sort of thinking about what that lifestyle that you want is.
Yeah, for sure.
And like, there's many levels of that, but um
Yeah, and there's no right and wrong. Like, some people, like, they're happy with a certain income, other people are happy with a lot higher.
and some
Either
people are
way,
never happy.
and some people are never happy, and that's very true. Like, I remember one thing that stood out to me in psychology class, was basically after 70,000, like, this was a few years ago, but after 70,000, the additional income doesn't necessarily add to your happiness. And I think the goal that, or like the message from that to me, was as long as your necessities are being met,
And
I
maybe
think
a
you
few
can.
extra little things here and there.
Yeah, yeah. But, everyone's extras are gonna vary. Like, for
Yeah.
me, like, I wanna travel. I wanna use all my extra money to go away, and I want it to be nice, and I wanna feel like it's luxury. That's important to me, and if I want that, then I need to make a certain amount of money. But other people, they might be really happy with other, goals, and so you have to know what those are and just shoot so that you're happy and not judging it based on other people.
And I totally get what they mean about that first 70, or whatever that number might be today, is, you need to be able to pay, your rent or your mortgage. You need to be able to eat groceries. You
Yep.
need to be able to have some degree of fun in your life. And again, everyone's fun is different, but maybe it's going to the movies, or maybe it's going out for dinner, like, and not all the time, but going out for dinner maybe once a month or special occasions,
Yeah.
like, and I think once you've sort of achieved all of that,
Yeah.
if you're not happy, you're not going to be.
It's not gonna be based on your income.
Did I ever tell you about the first Louis Vuitton purse I purchased?
No.
So I actually didn't purchase it.
Okay.
So I had saved up my money,
That's dope.
and I was going to buy a Louis Vuitton Speedy Damier Ebene 30 with the bandolier, and I
Wow.
was like probably like $300 away from hitting it. So I'd saved up like 2 grand, just shy of
Wow.
1,500 bucks. And this was when, much earlier in my career, where that was like, not that it's still not a lot of work to save that money now, but like, it was a lot of
A
work.
lot, yeah.
And I was so excited to get that purse. And it was the one time in life. So my husband's a lawyer, and at the time he was my boyfriend. And we were going to Europe. We had a 2-week trip planned, and I was so excited about it. And it was the only time in life where basically he had basically 6 weeks off between writing the bar and starting as a lawyer. And so I was just so excited. And I was just like Instagramming, looking at all the places I wanted to go. And I just had this decision that I wanted to go to Nice. And so I said, Stuart, I want to go to Nice. And he was like, well, he's like, I don't have any more money for this trip. Like, we're going on a 2-week trip. And I'm like, okay, but like, it could be a 3-week trip. The flights are already paid for. And he was just like, well, it can be a 3-week trip if you pay for the extra week. And so I took my Louis Vuitton Speedy 30 money, and I booked us flights from Barcelona to Nice, and then the train from Nice to Paris, a hotel in Nice, and
Wow. So
I
much better.
didn't it at all, because you know what?
Yeah.
I can't travel right now because of the
Yep.
situation. And also at my old job, I had a lot of vacation time, and he didn't have to use any vacation time. And so it was just that one time in life where it's like we had the time. I guess you could argue that we didn't have the money, but I did have the money.
Oh,
It's just the
you
money was
did.
going to
Yeah.
waste. And so that is
Yeah.
my first Louis Vuitton purse.
I love that. That's such a nice story because honestly, experiences like they'll last a lifetime.
Yeah, and we had the best time. Like I would go back in a
Yeah.
heartbeat. We loved our few days in Nice. It was amazing. We took the bus, like the public bus. It was like €2 from Nice to Monaco, and I
Oh,
researched it
yeah.
in advance. And so we sat on the correct side, and we basically got like an hour long, effectively guided tour
That's so cool.
going around the coast.
That's so amazing. I love that. We did that too. Like only we drove it and we drove into Monaco and it was just like just beautiful. So,
Right, obsessed.
yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
okay, so speaking of our obsession with travel, and in
Mhm.
no way connected to that. What
Yes.
does success mean to you?
So, I think success means that I have time with my family while fulfilling my financial needs, and also being able to travel a few times a year. For me, I think, yeah, like as long as I'm meeting what I need to meet, and I can go on trips, that's a huge part of it. Also, because I'm in real estate, I really do believe in buying properties. So over the course of the last couple of
Believe in it?
years, yeah, I've bought 2 properties, and my goal is to buy a couple more over the next few years so that when I do go to retire, I either have rental income from those investment properties or I can sell them so that we have some money for our retirement.
Awesome. I totally support that. That
Thank
is on
you.
my list of things to do, but first I need the house I will live in.
Yes.
We're not quite there yet.
Always take care of yourself first and then work on your investment.
Yes. Okay, so describe the moment and I don't know if you feel that yet, but what's the moment that you were like, okay, like I can do this, I've made it, like I'm, successful and good at my job. Like what was that moment for you?
So it's interesting. I worked with these renters and they were renting a 1 bedroom apartment for 4 people. And it was a basement. And yeah, they were newer to Canada and they were having a really hard time. And so they were my first like lease client. So I had treated them like gold, brought them out, took them to a bunch of places. They were like shocked because they're like, is this how realtors act in Canada when like they're barely making any money? And I was just like, don't worry, we're learning together. We're gonna figure this out. And then a few years later, they called me and they're like, I think we're ready to purchase. And helping them purchase their first home that was a 3 bedroom, 3 washroom townhouse was probably one of the highlights because I knew what they were coming from and I knew that their sons were struggling, that they were having a really hard time, that they couldn't bring friends over. And the mother really opened up to me about like how much that hurt her, that she couldn't give her kids a better start. And so when we had that like bonding experience and she really shared with me like what her goals were and why she had them, and then I was able to help her get into a new home, even though it was a little bit tricky just because the financing was not easy. I think that's when I realized I was like, you know what, this is something I can really see myself in and I really want to do this. Yeah, like it, and then it's nice because a lot of people at the end, like, they're grateful, but like, it is what it is. We work together and we move on. But she invited me over for dinner after, and they didn't have any furniture. And she had like made all this like doughy bread and all this delicious food. And we sat on the floor, like on like little towels, because that's what she had out of her boxes. And we just ate on the floor together. And I was just kind of like, this is really nice. Like this is really what it means, I think, for me to be successful in this career. Like people are happy, they want to work with me, they trust me. Um, so that was one of the big moments.
That's so cute.
Thank you.
Slightly unrelated question.
Yes.
Um, do you find that like is it harder to be a woman in real estate? Is it easier? Like is it just about the personality? Like do you find is it ever hard for, buyers to maybe take you seriously as a, like a younger woman,
Hmm.
all of that.
Yeah, like definitely in the beginning, I had that hurdle. I think sometimes I have it now, but I think now that I have so much experience, people like automatically like they might see me and think like, what do you know? And then I talk to them, they're like, okay, we get it. Like this is your life, right?
Yeah.
But in the beginning it was definitely a hurdle. So the way that I decided to sort of combat that was by joining a Remax. Because Remax is, you know, the number one brand in Canada and it's
It's
known to
huge.
have
When you say real estate in Canada,
think Remax. And so you know that like there's they associate success with that kind of a brokerage. And so that was one thing I did to help myself. But honestly, yes, like being a woman in real estate in the beginning and now sometimes has challenges. You need to make sure that people understand that you're there to work, that their goals and what you're trying to accomplish is purely real estate. And you need to be clear about that sometimes. But aside from that, I mean, I think it's been pretty the ground has been sort of broken for us. Like we've had so many trailblazers that of women that have been so successful in real estate and some of the top producing agents in our areas are women. So I think for that like they do take me seriously. It's just the other side of it where you have to make sure that people who come into your life as a new client understand that it's all about real estate and you have to be extra careful when you meet strangers at properties to make sure you don't end up in a difficult situation.
you know what, that is a great point that I think I'd want whoever is still listening to this to hear. How do you protect yourself physically when you are going into a home that you don't know, maybe with a new buyer? Like, how do you?
Mhm. So I rely a lot on intuition, as strange as that is, but I have this book called The Gift of Fear, and my mom gave it to me a long time ago. And it basically says, like, trust your gut, trust your instincts. So I definitely try and trust my instincts. But the more practical ways I do that is someone always knows where I am, especially when it's a new client. And if I really am unsure, I'll either bring my mom with me or there have been times where my husband's dropped me off or he's come in the car as well. And it is what it is. Like I'm meeting a new person in a property that's empty. And if they had any sort of, if they were weirded out at all about me having someone in the car, I don't want to work with them because safety is first. And honestly, it's like, I'm not going to put myself in a position where I get kidnapped or like, you know,
You know?
or worse.
Yeah,
Yeah, and, you know, the rest of my life's ruined because I didn't wanna make myself feel a little awkward, so that's what I do. I always make sure someone knows where I am, and if I really feel uncomfortable, which I have, I bring my mom or I bring, my husband with me.
that's really smart. I think those are really just practical tips for if anyone does decide to become a real estate agent, just in,
Yeah,
being safe because at the end of the day, like there are bad people out there. And you can't always tell who's,
definitely.
who has, bad intentions. And I'm just always reminded, I was on a family vacation to Cuba and I was walking through the resort. It was pitch black and I heard crying. I heard this little girl just bawling her eyes out. And so I went up to her. I'm like, "Hey, sweetie, like, are you okay?" And she was just wailing because she lost her Elsa doll.
Oh,
And I was like, "Okay, well, why don't we go find your mom?" And I said, "Do you know where your mom is?" And she said, "No." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "So thankfully I'm a good and decent person. So when I see a crying 7-year-old girl, my first instinct is I just want to like hug her and then like help her find her mom." Like,
that's nice. Yeah,
and so I took but I said, "Okay, like, well, come with me. Let's go find your mom." And I just think like, what if someone with bad intentions had come up to that girl and said, "Okay, let's go find your mom, but I just need to stop in my hotel room to just drop something off."
totally. Yeah,
Right? It's like,
yeah,
I know that obviously I would like never do that, but like, what if someone did? And like for that little girl, like it was just so easy to get her to follow me. Now,
yeah,
thankfully, she was following me to the front desk where we were going to try to find, and
yeah.
she found her mom at the bar, and her mom was not too happy to see her, which was really sad.
That
Um,
is really sad.
but I just think like, what if,
Yeah,
what, what if? And it was just so easy to get her to follow me.
yeah,
And so I just think like, there's so many situations where like something could go the other way and you just don't know. So it's better to be safe. And I know that I wouldn't have forgiven myself if like I just left that kid there
no,
for someone
no,
else
for
to
sure.
find. Because I
Yeah,
knew that if I took her to where we were going, that we would go somewhere
You'd get there. Yeah.
better. I was sort of thinking front desk or maybe the restaurant. I was like, maybe let's walk around the resort to find her. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
wasn't just leave her crying there. Okay,
Thank God.
last questions, and then we're gonna let you get back to your day.
Okay.
Ever look back at yourself 5 years ago and say like, "Wow, I can't believe I'm here right now."
I don't think I really like take the time to think that way, but when you just asked me that, there are definitely goals that I had set for myself at the beginning of real estate that I thought were unattainable, but that I really wanted to strive for. And knowing that I've achieved those goals, a lot of them, like buying an investment property, buying a house, and also personal goals. Like I really wanted to get married, so I've been with my husband now for 8 years, and we now have a little son together, who honestly is like just the best little thing that's ever happened to me. Um, I feel like 5 years ago, if you had asked me my goals, that would have been what they were. That and travel, right? And obviously we can't travel right now due to COVID, but um, before that we were traveling a lot. And so I think, yeah, like we really have accomplished a lot of the goals over the last 5 years. Of course, there's always room to grow and room for improvement. I never thought I'd be able to be a manager of an office, which I'm also like managing now too. So I'm just excited, like, to be here in this
Awesome.
time of my life. Yeah.
And what's the dream for 5 years from now?
I think it's relatively similar. A few more properties. I would really like to have a bigger house for our family so that we can, just grow together. Maybe another baby. You never know. And what else would I guess it would just be like, to keep a healthy, happy relationship. Like I think my relationship with my husband is something that's really important to me. And I want to make sure that I nurture that and I don't let work get in the way of living
So
a
important.
happy, balanced life.
That is so important. Um,
Yeah.
we have two last questions, but I'm throwing in
Okay.
a curveball.
Okay.
We have talked about you being a mom. How, and I know that you and I have talked about this just one on one, but I think it's important for the women listening. How does mat leave work as a real estate agent? And obviously, again, this is in the Ontario context,
hmm
um, but how does that work? And how did you make it work?
So it depends. So as a manager, because I was a manager for over a year, I was entitled to a mat leave. So I could take a full year of paid mat leave. Um, you have to make that decision whether or not you want to do that because if you're going to be working, then you can't take that. So what I did is I took it for the first few months just because I wanted to make sure that I was completely healed and that I got time with Leo, got to know him and know like if he really needed me to be home for a year, then I would have stayed with him for a full year. Um, and then decided that I wanted to get back to work as soon as things got busy. So now that things are busier, I'm just, doing real estate. Um, but it looks a lot different. All of my offers almost have him on my lap. I'm feeding him every 2 to 3 hours because I'm breastfeeding. So I have to factor that in. If I'm not going to be there, I have to make sure I either leave him with food or I have formula for him. And you just make it work. You sometimes he's come with me to a few showings with my mom in the car, and we just drive because I don't always want to leave him. Sometimes it's nice to just take him with me and not have to be like, okay, here, like we'll leave him at home. And I think eventually it's gonna be really nice for him to see his mom working. Like he's gonna be able to see that and be like, oh, like my mom's got a cool job. And I hope that he'll learn the family business too.
Have you ever had clients like give you a hard time for bringing him like in the car or needing to, be a mom and be their agent? Like, have you ever had a tough time?
Not yet. Not yet, but I sort of can gauge when I can talk about it and when I can't. Like some clients, they're very like, yeah, 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 congratulations, like you're a mom, next, and I'm like, you are not the person I'm gonna tell. I was up all night last night and talk to you about that. But with some moms, like I helped this lady buy a house in Guelph, and Leo was in the car with my mom, and she kind of looked and she's like, "Do they want to come in?" And I was like, "No, no, no, they're good. They're happy in here," because it's like but yeah, I mean, they're kind of like interested, but they don't really ask a lot about questions about it. It's kind of just like, oh, that's weird, but do what you got to do.
That's weird. He's cute. Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Um, and so how do you balance being a mom and having your baby and your career and all of that? I
All of
think
that.
I think it's so important to talk about balance. On
Mhm.
here at Classy on the Run, we love talking about like beauty and fashion, and today we're talking about things a little bigger. But for the busy woman on the go, whether she's a mom, whether she's a student, we talk a lot about just like looking pretty and polished while you're on the go. But I think balance is so important. It can't be all career. It can't be all one thing. I
Yeah.
think balance is important. So how do you balance?
I think it will be a forever work in progress, to be honest. I think that it's something that I'm going to probably have to learn how to balance. Right now, I try and do a lot of my work when he's napping. Eventually, he won't be taking naps. And so I'm going to have to hire help or enlist help from my family. I can't, just rely on my mother in law and just rely on my own mom because they have lives too and they have things that they need to do.
No, they have a grand.
So,
They don't.
yeah,
No,
I mean, that would be
no.
nice.
What else do they have?
But I might need to hire people who are going to be there for me and that I can depend on. And I would rather, have somebody who is dependable that I'm paying and that I can make my career work than just leave it to chance and be like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to sacrifice that client, or like I don't want to do that. I kind of want to have it all in a way,
Good.
and that's going to
Good.
yeah, and that's it's going to take having more people, like, that's where your village comes in and that's where your village comes together. And I'm not always going to be as polished. That's just a reality. Like some days I need to just get up, feed him, and go. And so it's going to be a ponytail, lipstick, and whatever I'm wearing. Like,
I live
I'm
in
not always.
ponytails at work, so don't
Yeah,
worry about that.
it's
Um,
just not going to be the same as it was before, where I have all this time to like prep myself and get ready. It's just going to be like, you know what? Let's get this done. Like, let's figure this out. And it's more just about how much value I bring in the moment rather than sometimes how I look or how much
how
sleep I've
pretty
had.
it's packaged.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess my last question is, what advice do you have for people who want to become real estate agents, and what skill sets do you need to be a successful real estate agent?
I think to be successful, you need to be resourceful. You need to be resilient because it comes with a lot of rejection. You need to be able to network and reach out to people that you know and ask for things sometimes. So, the resilience factor, like you can be at one of the biggest events of your life, like your baby shower or like, something really special to you. And someone might come over to you and tell you about this beautiful house that they just purchased with somebody else. And you like in the beginning, it's really hard. It's really hard to deal with that because you just think like, well, like why wasn't I good enough? You know? And so I think with experience, you just learn to say, okay, you know what? I'm so happy for you. Like really, congratulations, and know that it's not about you. Like it might be and it might not be, but it's much better for you to basically develop this thick skin where you can say to yourself, you know what? It's really not about me. And if it was, then I wish you all the best. Like, you know. Uh, Another thing is like you need to make sure that you have a lot of energy because this job is all hours. Um, and it is something that you need to make sure that you find your balance so that you can have your career, but you can also have your life and know when to turn it off. Because if you're going to have a relationship and it's going to be successful, there are going to be times that you're going to just want to focus on your husband or focus on your child or focus on your wife or whatever you're going to be focusing on. And you can't let work constantly infiltrate your life. I think a lot of people who are working from home right now can understand more of a realtor's life because we are always working from home. So we're making dinner while doing offers. We're making dinner while we're taking care of our baby. I'm like looking up listings while, putting Leo to bed. It's just it's part of who I am, it's part of my life, and I'm a multitasker. So anyone who wants to get into this business really has to be able to multitask and understand that it's a way of life more than it is a job.
Awesome. Well, I think we've had a great conversation here. So stay on the line. I'm going to stop recording in a moment. But I think we've had a great conversation. Thank you for joining us. I hope that anyone who watched or listened in on this took something helpful away from it. I do have a few more really cool women lined up to talk about their careers. I'm really trying to showcase just a diversity and a breadth of different paths that you can take. So if there's a career that is on your mind, please leave it in the comments down below, and I will do my absolute best to find a friend who can join us to talk about that. Um, and I'm going to leave some links for Natalie down below for her blog that she's a part of, and maybe some social media or an email in case
Yeah,
you
definitely.
guys, are interested in buying a house.
Yeah, and if anybody is interested in becoming a realtor, feel free to ask any questions. I'm happy to answer any of them. So
And leave some comments down below, and I'll make sure that Natalie sees them so she can comment back to you guys too. Anyways, thank you so
thank you.
much for watching. We're going to have another career chat video up in a week or two, so stay tuned and subscribe if you haven't already. We love talking about, high-end beauty and makeup and fashion and travel when we're not in a pandemic. But we also love, we know that so many people who watch this are busy working moms, working women, students. And so I really just want to provide you guys some higher level content to enjoy during these crazy times. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Thanks for having me.